What's up, guys? This is going to be the full card breakdown for UFC 247, Jones versus Reyes. It's coming up this Saturday, 6:30 start time for the early prelims. And it's a decent card. I think that, there could be some more star power and definitely not a whole lot of implication as far as rankings go. But I think there's some interesting fights, and I think it'll definitely be an entertaining card. And with all the breaks that we've had recently, especially over the holidays, we're coming up on a nice stretch of fights here. So I think this is a good way to kick it off. Definitely depending on John Jones, as they did with Conor McGregor for the bulk of the pay-per-view buys, but I'll definitely be watching. So first fight of the night, we got Salah and Austin Lingo. This could be a really good fight. I think that there's a clear stand-up advantage for Austin Lingo. I mean, a lot of power in his punches. If he connects, not only likely for a TKO, because he will swarm his opponent, and the shots are so heavy that it will stun, leaving enough opening for him to get the finish. But he also has enough power to put guys all the way out. That said, though, I have seen him taken down pretty easily in a couple fights, or at least one that I can remember, was an easy takedown. And I feel like, Salah is slightly more well-rounded, as much as there will be that advantage on the feet for Lingo, and the fight, of course, does start standing. So, it's going to be interesting at the first exchanges. But it does remind me a lot of that recent fight we saw between Landwehr and Burns. A couple fighters making their debut. We don't really know what we're going to get. And I think the fight not to go the distance is a good play here. So that is the first bet of the night at 1.72. But, I'm leaning towards Zalal, actually, just because I think he's going to look to take the fight to the ground. Lingo hasn't been out of the first round very often, or at least in his most recent fights. I think each of them does have a couple decisions on the record. But from the fights I watched, they were quick for Lingo. And, Zalal has lost a couple decisions. But, he has fought some decent opponents, and he has looked good in some fights. So as long as he fights smart here, I mean, there's definitely a clear path to victory for him. And I will be picking him to win. And, the line is off. And, the fight not to go the distance, like I said, first bet of the night. Next up, we got Andre Ewell and Jonathan Martinez. So, Andre Ewell, just to cut to the chase, is a guy that I don't really trust. He has disappointed me after that performance against Henenbrow, where, in all honesty, Henenbrow didn't have great cardio himself. So they were probably on an even playing field there. But, that is a big deficiency for Ewell. If he cleaned up his cardio, got out running, and, got that sorted out, he could definitely be a threat. I think he uses his jab and his 1-2 pretty good. I mean, he is predictable, to be honest, but he can be effective, and I think he's going to have a strength advantage and a power advantage in this fight. But, I think that Martinez is probably going to look to stay in his face and make it, a work-heavy fight where he's going to be having to defend takedowns, get his back off the cage, and then occasional, flurries by Martinez. But I don't think Martinez is going to be looking to exchange very much with Ewell. I could be wrong, but I think that if he does choose to do that, Ewell has the potential to put him out. So if Martinez, grinds on him, I think a decision is possible in this fight. I'm going to pick Martinez just because, again, I don't trust Ewell. And there's another fight on this card, same type of theme, but it's going to be Martinez here by decision. No betting on that fight. Next up, we got Pilar Tay and Newsome. Significant reach advantage and size advantage for Pilar Tay here. But, Newsome has a bit of power in his hands, and Pilar Tay doesn't react well when he gets hit. I found that, he is really confident with his striking, but that does make me nervous that he's going to be willing to exchange with Newsome. And if Newsome connects, it could be a quick night. Now, if Pilar Tay fights smart and uses his size and reach, it could be an easy fight for him. Newsome has had a fight against Ramos and, didn't have the best game plan. As much as I was impressed with him being able to hang with, that high-level competition, he stayed on the outside. It didn't really make a lot of sense. If he does that here, Pilar Tay could definitely pick up a pretty easy decision. But, Newsome, also has some nice leg kicks. He does have weapons. He's not going to be, a pushover in this fight. So it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to go with Pilar Tay here by decision. But, another entertaining fight. Next up, we got Miles Johns and Mario Bautista. watching tape on Johns, I think that he has the wrestling and the power in his hands here, but Bautista's probably going to have the volume and the speed. And what really impressed me with Bautista is how he picks up later in the fight and still has, crazy cardio into the third round. It almost looked like, he was moving better and faster in the third, letting off more, more volume than he did in the first. So that is impressive. But, Johns didn't really strike me as a guy watching tape. I mean, a grapple heavy fight with Cole Smith, he wasn't overly tired. I mean, it didn't look like he had any major cardio issues. He was able to throw with power at the end of that fight and almost get Cole out of there. So he carried that power in a grapple heavy fight into the third round. So if he does pick his shots well, I mean, you could hear his coaches in that fight saying to him, don't throw punches, in certain positions, to conserve his energy. So they are aware, of picking the spots because he does throw with power. There is a clear path to victory for Johns if he just, gets those takedowns, maybe clips Bautista once or twice. I think he can get it done. I am going to pick him. Definitely no bet here, though, because Bautista has the potential to get a decision as well with the volume and that cardio, like I said. So I think, again, this is a really good fight. All four of these fights to start off the card are going to be interesting. But I'm going to go with Johns here by decision. No bet again. So next up, Andrea Lee and Lauren Murphy. This is, funny to me how many people are high on Andrea Lee. Don't get me wrong. I think, she should be able to take care of Murphy. If, we look at the speed and the technique, she is, slightly better there. And, Murphy's definitely going to have to weather a storm in that first round. But if she can do that, I think she's really going to be hungry in this fight. She's coming off a win that people didn't expect her to get in her last fight. She does have names on her resume, split decision with Sarah McMahon, a girl that I, rate pretty highly. She is the highest level competition with Olympic wrestling. So I think that, Lauren Murphy does have that path to victory if she makes it a gritty fight and looks to take down Andrea Lee. I don't think striking with her is going to be smart. I mean, looking at tape, there is a clear advantage for Andrea Lee. That's why I say, she's really going to have to weather a storm if Murphy wants to, grind out a win. But I think she, potentially could do that. I'm going to pick Murphy here because I think the odds are off. I was tempted at a bet, but I mean, because of the fact that I can see, Andrea Lee lighting her up, that kind of makes me hesitate. And I only like to pull the trigger, as people know, when I'm confident. And this is not a confident bet, even with the line being off. But I'm going to take Lauren Murphy, though, by decision here. She has the tools to get it done, and I don't see what everyone else sees in Lee. Again, don't get me wrong, has some technique and speed, but, definitely not somebody I think is ready to be in the title picture by any means. And then next we got Morono and Williams. So there's actually another bet here. I paired up Morono at 1.4 with John Jones at 1.22. I actually expected Jones to go down to, closer to Shevchenko numbers. But, these are pretty accurate. I think Reyes does have a chance. But, we did see him lose to Volkan Ozdemir, in my opinion. Now, he pulled out the win there. I actually bet on Reyes in that fight and didn't expect that I was going to get, or that bet was going to hit when I went to decision. So I considered myself lucky there. And if, a guy like Volkan can get it done, who, I shouldn't say it, like he's not a good fighter. I rate Volkan pretty highly. But I think Jones can get it done as well. I think he'll be able to get the takedowns. He'll probably look to do, what he did with Anthony Smith, get him up against the fence. Might be boring for a while, but I actually think he'll be able to get Reyes on his back and probably, rain down some elbows and get a TKO. I won't be betting against Jones until he loses, to be honest. I don't think anybody, is putting huge money on Reyes because if you look at it on tape, there's no real advantage for Reyes. But that said, a guy like him with the power that he has, I wouldn't write him off. He's in the picture, in the spot that he's in because he got some impressive wins and, he's racked up a nice resume. So I do have a lot of respect for him. I just think John Jones, at least for now, is still in a spot where he can be dominant. And that last fight with Santos was a little bit, it was something to look at. I lost confidence in Jones a little bit there, but I think he's going to be looking to prove something and can probably get the finish. So again, I paired him up with Morono. But we'll get back into talking about the card. The next fight we have Giles and Arroyo. And the rest of these I can get through pretty quick. Trevin Giles is not a guy I trust, similar to Ewell, because of some of the decisions he's made in fights and, it leading to losses for him. So I'm going to be taking Arroyo in this fight, just being the up-and-comer, some crazy powerful kicks. And watching tape, Giles was caught with some body kicks, and some leg kicks, but he has the potential to get it done. I mean, he has power in his hands. So, another fight that's close, and it could go either way. But I'm going to take Antonio Arroyo here just because, I've been disappointed by Trevin Giles in the past, and I don't trust him. So I'll say by TKO, but it could go to a decision here. And I will be nervous again. Any of these fights that are close going to a decision, we see robberies all the time. It's the most, it's the worst problem in the sport. So hopefully we don't see any here. But, if it's going to be a close one, guys, I would just stay away from it. Then, one of the most interesting fights of the night, Derek Lewis and Latifi. It's hard for me to ignore the performance or the fight where Daniel Cormier just ragdolls Derek Lewis. It's going to be the performance, or it's going to be the game plan that Latifi comes in with. He's going to look to replicate that DC performance where he just threw around Lewis and got the job done. There is a difference, and a huge difference when it comes to DC and Latifi with cardio. And Derek Lewis is really good at getting up out of terrible positions. I can't believe how many fights he was able to make it out of multiple bad positions, right? Flat on his back in side control, just springing back up, right to his feet. It's crazy. So I give Derek Lewis a lot of credit, and he is the most impressive at getting back to his feet that I've ever seen, just because of the fact he's had huge guys in side control or in, full mount at times, and he just gets right back up. I mean, he is a really strong guy, but, Latifi's known to be really strong as well. And I think Lewis is a little bit awkward. I've always felt like he just doesn't look like he's comfortable in there. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's got a lot of big wins and he's done really well, but his stance, the way he moves, he looks susceptible to takedowns. And I just can't get past, like I said, that DC performance. Now, Lewis could easily get the knockout here. Being at home, I went back and forth on this one as well. I thought if Latifi gasses out, it's Lewis all day. He's going to wing bombs like he has in the past, catch him and put him out. I mean, he went face down in his last fight with Volkan Ozdemir, right? So hard to pick a guy who gets KO'd that brutally fighting a guy at heavyweight with this type of power. But then you have the fact that it's so easy to get Lewis to the mat. So hard fight to call. But I'm going to take Latifi here, being the dog again, because, it's hard to ignore the fact that Lewis has a really hard time with grapplers. And he hasn't fought a lot of grapplers, right? Or had to face, a fighter who was only looking to take him down, right? He has got up out of a ton of bad positions, but, a lot of times fighters are willing to fight at a slower pace with him or, fight more of the fight that he wants. But when we saw a guy who had a clear plan in Daniel Cormier just to grapple him nonstop, we saw what happened. So really interested to see how this one plays out. Not interested in a bet. Don't think it goes the distance. No value like, the first bet at 1.72. I think that fight not to go the distance had value. This one, not so much. I mean, I'm sure people will have it in parlays, but I'm just staying away from that fight altogether. Next is Dan Ige and Mirsad Backdick, a fight that I did go over in a video, I think it was last week. I just think Ige has power in his hands. He's on his way up, improving every fight. Looked good in his last couple performances. where Backdick, has been put out. I feel like his chin is shaky. I mean, anytime a guy's put down by a jab, he wasn't put out, but he was, rocked enough where a guy like Ige is going to jump on him and put him out quick in a situation like that. So if he does get clipped over that 15 minutes, I think it'll be, a finish for Ige. At the same time, I definitely don't write off Backdick. He's a good grappler. He has the grappling advantage in my opinion, and a lot of times I'll go with the fighter who's the better grappler. But in this case, I just feel like over the time or over the course of the fight, Ige will have his moment and he'll be able to capitalize on it. But Backdick was a big prospect. The UFC was looking to promote and was getting behind, and has a lot of power in his hands as well. So it's the dog money that put me onto this play. If I would have seen Backdick at 2.2, it would have been tempting, but I still would have picked Ige to win, and with him being the dog there at that money, I thought it was a good bet. Especially after watching, when you see a guy, like I said, get put down by a jab, and you see a guy with power like Ige has, at dog money. A lot of people were just wondering, on the last video, why I saw the fight going the way that I did, and I just wanted to give, more of a elaborate breakdown on that one. And then Tafa and Adams. I mean, this one, I lean towards Adams because he has the wrestling, and I've seen Tafa taken down easily. He also has the size, but Tafa could catch him. He's kind of like a Mark Hunt style fighter. I think he does train under Hunt, and has knocked guys out pretty viciously. But I think in this fight, if Adams fights smart and took this seriously, I think he can get it done. So I'm going to pick Adams here by ground and pound. Next up, we got Co-Main, Shevchenko, and Chikagian. I just think Chikagian's a bit in over her head here. I don't really like watching her fight. I think, a lot of her shots are pillow shots, or they miss by an inch or two, and she does a lot of screaming. Don't get me wrong, I do respect her. She's got to the point where she's at for a reason. Beat a lot of good girls, high-level competition, so can't take that away from her. But, I'm not really a fan of Chikagian. I think Shevchenko gets it done here. Now, will it go the distance? It's possible. If Chikagian, tries to run around and frustrate Shevchenko, not that I think that'll work, but it could, prolong the fight a bit. So the, potential for decision is there, but I think the line is off. I think there's more of a chance that Shevchenko gets it done than 2.50. So, I mean, not mad at anybody who took a shot on that. Me personally, I wasn't interested, but I am going to be taking Shevchenko to get it done by TKO, or, possibly submission, but by finish in the third or fourth round. And then the main event, Jon Jones and Dominic Reyes. Getting straight to the point, I just don't think Reyes is the guy to get it done. In this situation, I just feel like Jones is going to get him down, be able to, rain down some elbows or some ground and pound. And if he turns over, possibly lock a submission, or if, Jones just holds him in, the position that he's in, he'll just get the TKO. So it's either a rollover submission or a ground and pound finish, the way I see it going. But, anything can happen. When you have the power that Reyes has, he has that potential. But the way Jones fights, using those kicks to keep the guys, or to keep his opponents off him, he knows what he's doing in there, how to win a point fight. And then, if he sees Reyes slow down or openings, he's going to look to get the finish, I think, in this one. So Jon Jones there, paired up with Morono. And again, a couple confident picks that I thought the price, pairing them up, was pretty good. So I'm sure a lot of people have that parlay, to be honest. But that's about it, guys. If you guys have any bets, let me know. I always like to hear who you guys are going with. And I'll be back, of course, with the weekly bet recap. And that's about it, guys. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.